to circle back to what you said at the beginning, because I just think, sometimes when I judge myself about the way I'm wording something, but it's like, I'm not a robot. Like, we make mistakes. We don't say things exactly the way we want to say them. We're going to get to Ye in a minute here. The Ye Drink Champs interview and things that he's been saying on other interviews after the fact. But to get to the point, one of the ideas that was presented was, you don't defeat bad communication with excommunication. You can't solve bad communication by cutting off communication. That just ends up making things worse, because now all you're left with is, first, a bad taste in your mouth from the last thing that was said, and now it's just more and more assumptions being made without any communication. So it's just, the rift is just going to grow.
Right.
The solution to bad communication is more communication, and to talk it out and say, what do you really mean by that? And so I know you're an ardent defender of Ye, and I defend his right to free speech. If you actually watch that Drink Champs podcast, DJ EFN, and I know we talked a little bit about this on the phone, DJ EFN is the least talked about of the three that participated in that interview.
You have mentioned that to me.
But every time he speaks, he was on point 100% of the time. And even if I disagree with Kanye, I think that he should not be canceled. And the reaction to some of the things that he said, I think, has been an overreaction. I think me and you agree on that part. I have Jewish friends, and so like I kind of feel like the whole, I worked for a Jewish company, basically.
Right.
You remember that? And I see that group of people as any other group of people. Some of them suck. Some of them are fucking cool.
Right.
And so I do think, to get right to the point, the one part that I was like, not mad, but like a little frustrated and irritated with Ye was when DJ EFN said, Ye, I feel what you're saying, and I actually agree with you probably more often. Like, I'm paraphrasing here. I don't want to say this is exactly what DJ EFN said, but the gist of what he was saying was, you could articulate yourself better. You go on these rants and you say things like Tuskegee, people think you're crazy. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Right.
Like, people really should be going and looking and researching about these events that actually have happened.
Which I think is a main way that Ye moves. I mean, it's never going to be... But he could
articulate himself better.
Of course,
and he didn't
absolutely.
I thought that was a great point that DJ EFN made. And then Ye, in classic Ye fashion, said, you know what I love about the Drink Champs is, I was just thinking about this when you were talking, is that I could have never run for president if I wasn't on. He pretty much just deflected from what was a very real and good criticism. And if Ye had actually taken it to heart, he could have grown from that and been like, you know what, I actually do have a lot of good ideas, and he can still be cocky and blow himself up in that way.
Right.
But also be like, you know what, you're right. I could articulate myself in a way where my message comes across a little clearer. He shouldn't be up there talking about, I'm on my anti-Semite vibe. I get he's being controversial. I get he's being
Not
gay,
only is he being controversial at that point,
but
that do say he's kicking in right there too. I mind you, not making excuses for him at all.
That's not a smart thing to say.
It's you're right. I think I agree with that.
Because when you actually watch the whole interview, he's making some very good points throughout. And there are some parts where I'm like 100% in agreement with him, but then he says some wild shit and he's not articulating himself exactly right. I get that. And I have a soft spot for him, and I'm not the type of person that wants to cancel anybody. So it don't bother me like it bothers some people. But he could articulate himself better.
I agree with that. I think he said something on there that really resonated with me. That was along the lines of, sometimes the person that's needed is not going to come as one that's the best speaker or well said. He said, usually the well said, the well spoken, and the ones that sound and can talk that
polished,
that super polished, super on script, That's what you really should be looking out for, and really should be watching out for.
I get that to a degree, but it's okay to be raw. And then when somebody like EFN says, "Could you articulate yourself a little better?"
Right.
You need to respond to that instead of deflecting from the point.
Right. That is a good point, though. But at the same token, I think it's also to bring a lot of folks to the well too. You know, it's like, what else? And we look around all the time, G, and we see.
What was that book that you recommended to me? Because I feel like that is something that people should read if they really want to deepen their understanding of the relationship between the Jewish people and the real Jews.
Which book?
The black people that exodus out of Egypt.
Oh, right.
You, Kanye West.
Yeah. Well,
the real Jews.
And I wish that there was some more attention to that, you know? Like, some of these things, they get glossed over, they get touched on.
What was that book, though? What was that book that you...
I'm trying to think.
You remember? And I'm going to be honest, I just skimmed through it, but what impressed me was it was receipts.
Oh, right.
Names of people that owned these slaves and literally slave receipts, literally.
But there's a lot of that out there, G.
Oh, no,
there's
no,
a lot.
It wasn't like just Jewish people.
Right. I just mean
it seemed like there was a unique relationship between Jewish culture and African American slaves based on that book. And I wish I knew the title of that book because you're the one that turned me on to it.
What book? I'm trying to think.
It might have been a Farrakhan book.
It might have been something I ran across and sent to you, but I can't think of which.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the history of the relationship between, and it was. I think it was a Nation of Islam publication.
You know, the interest, and he mentioned them too. You know, he mentioned them too. You could tell that he's been checking in there and touching base with. You know, I don't know. It's interesting what Ye's doing right now. But one thing that I know is that I don't know. Sometimes you can tell the difference, though, G, when you see just someone who, yes, he's going about it in a way that's
yay, very yay. But you know,
what do you do?
The canceling thing.
What do you do out here?
The censorship and canceling thing, like that's. So if you're Adidas or you're somebody like that, and you don't want to do business with him because of something he said, that's your business,
right?
The fact that he's calling out the Jewish media,
well, I think also,
and then the very media.
Ye's obsession with Jewish right now is because he's around a lot of that too. He's in the music industry. He's in the clothing industry.
Right.
He's in a lot of industries where they do seem to be very prevalent.
And another thing that nobody's talking about
what
is
he touches on about this when he says, like, well, what's the issue? What's going on? It's about the contracts. It's about how the business of it is ran. It's about things.
To that point specifically.
It's about people looking at and hearing what he's saying and thinking that they're looking at his world in the cusp of your 9 to 5 and your bubble of what you think is really going on out here, when in reality,
he seemed to have an epiphany during the podcast where he said,
he's
jealous.
He's jealous. He's the type that creates,
and that's growth. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. You're jealous because you wish the culture that you grew up in was more like this culture.
How much more raw of an emotion do you want someone to show in a lot of what he was saying?
I appreciate it very much because he's literally telling you, like, I think this is why I feel this way is because I'm actually jealous, and it was like a revelation to him when he said it. You know what I mean? And jealousy, you know.
It starts
that's something he needs to work through himself, though, because it's not the Jewish people's fault.
It's not
necessarily. It might be certain individuals, but in that case, you need to target them instead of the culture as a whole that you're admitting you're jealous of.
it's also not just.
But no, think about what point you want to make, because I know you got some good points to make with using Ye as an example, because that's your boy.
Yeah, it's. I feel right. It's kind of a good example though right now, because it's that
He's
whole.
speaking his mind, even if he's wrong.
I mean, on everywhere he's been on a tear. You know, he was on Carlson Tucker.
Tucker Carlson, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't like that crowd, but I like that move by him.
Yes, it's a smart move, of course. Yeah.
Why not?
I agree with that, though.
I like that. Bend it all. Let's all throw it. You know, like Tech Nine said. I put everything in the cauldron and until the bullshit boiled off, and all that was left was love.
The whole approach, though. Yes, it's not perfect, but who else? Yeah. Who's even trying?
If you know that
to do it at that level
is love, then you can handle the bullshit. You can talk through the bullshit. If you know that, if you truly understand and truly believe that reality is founded in love and it couldn't exist without love, because hate would destroy itself, then you can talk to anybody.
No.
We can create that world. It's real. It ain't hippie bullshit. All it takes is actually talking to each other and not canceling somebody for having. I agree with the mob that some of the things he said was wrong. Some of the things he said was inflammatory.
I agree with the mob.
The work mob, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's what they are, basically. And sometimes I agree with them. And sometimes I don't.
Right.
It is what it is. But I shouldn't be canceled because I disagree sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
and Ye shouldn't be canceled because he said some fucked up shit. Everybody says fucked up shit sometimes. If we're going to be out here canceling everybody, then it's like an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And it's the same thing with our communication. You know, if nobody's allowed to present their point of view, no matter how wrong it is, a child doesn't have a fully developed point of view. You're going to cancel the child?
But I also think that I think we get really hung up in these triggers, right?
But why is it triggering? Why are we taking everything personally? We got to be able to handle people saying fucked up shit about you. Personally. Because it's not even personal. If somebody says something fucked up to you, about you, they're having a bad day. Mm-hmm. We got to be able to not like, it's not about having thick skin. Yes, we do need to we do need to have a level of it. We shouldn't be looking to be inflammatory.
Oh, cool. I agree. I agree with that.
But returning hate with fuck that person, cut them off from society and everything that they love. Oh, that's gonna help. That's gonna turn them into fucking the Joker. You know what I mean?
I think if we spent more of our time
getting to understand each other. Understand each other's stories, backgrounds.
But also just actually doing the work of understanding what certain things are being presented versus immediately getting triggered because it's not something that you understand or agree with and just boom, I'm done with that, instead of maybe balancing that emotion out and just looking at it objectively and saying, what is this that they or this individual speaks of?
But a philosopher in me is saying, is it really possible to look at anything objectively?
You kind of can. I actually really try to. Even when I get like that,
I feel you.
Let me go and see what's up with all this. Like, I got to do that even for a lot of the side that I always talk about, that I get it with both sides, but that one side that I like to talk to you about, G, I still.
Well, but the reason I pose that question is because it gets back to something I already said.
What's that?
The ultimate truth is love.
Yeah.
And if you move, you like to use the word move, but operate, if you function in such a way where you know that love is the truth, the only real truth, then you can have conversations with people who spew hateful or even wrong ideas and uncover whatever wound it is that they have that makes them feel that way. In Kanye's case, it's jealousy. He revealed that, and I think that's raw, and that's what I mentioned. I respect that. I respect that he was that raw, but I think that's a real problem. He's got to deal with that himself. And like I said, that's not the Jewish people's problem.
But it's not. I don't think he's just speaking for just him either, though. I don't think he's just speaking for him either.
I get that,
and I
think not only he, but the people responding to him should put more of an emphasis on what he said there. That was key, and it's being overlooked.
Well, I don't think that it's. I think
you said you're good on
I think all of this is being parsed. I think that's what people are spending time doing right now.
Certain parts.
I mean, you go on, it's a bunch of videos out here, people breaking it down. They talk, that's just what it's going to do. But that comes back to exactly what I mean. I think regardless of how people are feeling about it, in the long run, these are the type of things that he has shown to do. And usually in history gets done when you look back at something and say, oh, remember that moment that led to this.
Right.
He
started a conversation.
Yeah, that's what half of this is. That's what most of this is about, to be honest. It's like, what do we...
Yeah, you can't assume that, though, because he definitely said some shit that he shouldn't have said. And I don't want to say he shouldn't have said it, but that I strongly disagree with. And I do think is wrong. Regardless of my reaction to thinking that he's wrong is totally different than the woke mob. I agree with the woke mob that he was wrong about these certain clips that they're making, that they want to push, but they don't want to push the part where he says he's jealous. They don't want to push the parts where he's being more articulate, right?
Which is usually how that works.
Of course. But just because I disagree with him on those certain things and think that he's wrong about certain things, my reaction to that would be, why do you feel that way, Kanye? And then if you listen to the whole interview, and why I say the whole interview as a whole, I think is great.
I think he touches on jealous. So much.
And that is a key part of that interview that's being glossed over. That's a problem, like you said, is maybe he's saying that speaking for other people when he says that too, but at the end of the day, you can really only speak for yourself.
Yeah, true.
Maybe people like you and many, 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 many others agree, but that's still you agreeing. You don't want to take the power away from yourself either.
No, for sure. I agree with that. I agree with that as well. I agree with that as well. And I'm not taking off the hook for anything. I think at the end of the day, just like anybody else, people have a perspective for what
things you say and the actions that you take.
And also the world that you're a part of too. And I think, again, he's a little bit closer to the top of where people are in power and influence than I think the average that might be on Twitter complaining about that, really missing some of ultimately just the key parts of what even needs to be taken away from the stuff that he's saying, to be honest.
I'd love to see him have a conversation with Daryl Davis at this point, at this juncture in time.